Hello, brothers and sisters, and thank you for joining us for another Maccabees study. Sorry this one isn't live. I didn't really have a good time to post it and get it through, and I didn't think I'd get much audience at the time that I'm doing it, and I might get some interruptions here, and that would really just ruin the live video. But thank you for joining us, and I'm going to go over Maccabees 13 and Maccabees 14 today. Dear God, Almighty Hashem, thank you for the blessings you give us. Lord Yahweh, the God of Moses, the God of Israel, the God of all of us, over all of us, the ultimate living, the almighty living God, the one who gave us this Bible, the one who gave us this word. May you bless this word to those who watch it. May they be increased, and may they have a following towards your heart and be understanding towards your heart and your spirit, and understand the gifts that you give us, and take on the blessings and become strong as a child of yours. Amen. First Maccabees 13. Simon heard that Typho had assembled a large army to invade the land of Judea and destroy it, and he saw that the people were trembling with fear. So he went up to Jerusalem, gathering the people together. He encouraged them, saying to them, "You yourselves know what great things my brothers and I and the house of my father have done for the laws and the sanctuary. You know about the wars and the difficulties that my brothers have seen. By reason of all this, my brothers have perished in the shake of Israel, for alone I am left. And now, far from it, me, me to spare my life in any time of distress, for I'm not better than my brothers, but I will avenge my nation and the sanctuary and your wives and children, for all the nations have gathered together out of hatred to destroy us. Say a forsaking kind of a thing, foreshadowing into the future, because they will be doing that again here as Revelation says. All the nations will come back on against Israel, and they'll try to take them out in the end. The spirit of the people was rekindled when they heard these words, and they answered in a loud voice, "You are our leader in the place of Judas and your brother Jonathan. Fight our battles. All that you say to us, we will do." So he assembled all the warriors and hurried to complete the walls of Jerusalem, and he fortified it on each side. He sent Jonathan, the son of Absalom, to Joppa, with him a considerable army. He drove out its occupants and remained there. Then Typho left Ptomus with a large army to invade the land of Judea, and Jonathan was with him under guard. Simon encamped in Adea, facing the plain. Typho learned that Simon had risen up in the place of his brother Jonathan, and that he was about to join battle with him. So he sent envoys and said, "It is for the money that your brother Jonathan owed at the royal treasury in connection with the offices he held that we are detaining him. Send now, send now 100 talents of silver and two of his sons as hostages, so that when released, he will not revolt against us, and we will release him." Simon knew that they were speaking deceitful to him, but he sent to get the money and the sons, so he would not arouse great hostility among the people, who might say, "It was because of Simon did not send him the money and the sons that Jonathan perished." So he sent the sons and 100 talents, but Typho broke his word and did not release Jonathan. After Typho came to invade the country and destroy it, he circled around by the way of Dora. But Simon and his army kept marching along, opposed to him to every place he went. Now the men in the citadel kept sending envoys to Typho, urging him to come to them by the way of the wilderness and send food. So Typho got his all his cavalry ready to go. But that night a heavy snow fell, and he did not go because of the snow. He marched off and went to the land of Gilead, where he approached Bascama and killed Jonathan, and he was buried there. Typho returned and went back to his own land. Simon sent and took the bones of his brother Jonathan and buried them in Modin, the city of his ancestors. All Israel bewailed him with great lamentation and mourned for him for many days. And Simon built a monument over the tomb of his father and his brothers. He made it high so that it might be seen with polished stone in the front and the back. So he erected 7 pyramids opposite of one another for his father, his mother, and 4 brothers. For the pyramids he devised an elaborate setting, erecting them great columns, and on the columns he put suits of armor for a permanent memorial. And besides the suits of armor, he carved ships so they could be seen by all those who sail by sea. This tomb he built in Modin remains to this day. Typho dealt treacherously with the young king Antiochus, and he killed him and became king in his place, putting the crown of Asia, and he brought calamity on the land. But Simon built up the strongholds of Judea and walled them all around, with high towers and great walls and gates and bolts. And he stored food in the strongholds. Simon also chose emissaries and sent them to King Demetrius with a request to gain relief for the country. For all that Typho did was to plunder, King Demetrius sent him a favor, will reply to his request, and wrote him a letter as follows. King Demetrius to Simon, the high priest and friend of the kings, and to the elders and to the nation of the Jews, greetings. We have received the gold crown and the palm branch that you sent. We are ready to make a general peace with you and to write our officials to grant you release from tribute. All the grants that we have made to you remain valid, and the strongholds that you have built let be your possession. We pardon any errors and offenses that you committed this day, and cancel the crown tax that you owe, and whatever other tax has been collected in Jerusalem shall be collected no longer. And if any of you qualified to be enrolled in our bodyguard, let them be enrolled, and let there be peace unto us. In 170th year, the yoke of the Gentiles was removed from Israel, and the people began to write in their documents and contracts in the first year of Simon the great high priest and commander of the Jews. In those days, Simon encamped against Garza and surrounded it with troops. He made a siege engine, brought it up to the city, and battered and captured one tower. The men in the siege engine leapt out into the city, and a great tumult arose in the city. The men of the city with their wives and children went on the wall with their clothes torn, and they cried out with a loud voice, saying, Simon, asking Simon to make peace with them. And they said, Do not treat us according to our wicked acts, but according to your mercy. So Simon reached an agreement with them and stopped fighting against them. But he expelled them from the city and cleansed the houses which the idols were located. And he entered with hymns and praise. He removed all uncleanness from it, and he settled in it with those who observed the law. He also strengthened the fortifications and built it in the house for himself. Those who were in the citadel at Jerusalem were prevented from going in and out to buy and sell in the country. So they were very hungry, and many of them perished from famine. So they cried to Simon to make peace with them, and he did so. But he expelled them from there and cleansed the citadel from its pollution. On the 23rd day of the second month, in the 171st year, the Jews entered with praise and palm branches, and with harps and cymbals, and stringed instruments, with hymns of songs, because the great enemy had been crushed and removed from Israel. Simon decreed that every year they should celebrate this day with rejoicing. He strengthened the fortifications of the Temple Hill along with the citadel, and his men lived there. Simon saw that John had reached manhood, so he made him a commander of all the forces, and he lived at Garza. In the 101st Maccabees 14, I think this is the capture of Garza by Simon, or that we actually went through that. This is the eulogy of Simon. In the 100 year and 72nd year, King Demetrius assembled his forces and marched into Media to obtain help so that he could make war against Typho. When the king Arses of Persia and Media heard that Demetrius had invaded the territory, he sent one of his generals to take him alive. The general went and defeated the army of Demetrius and seized him and took him to Arsaces and put him under guard. The land had rest all the days of Simon. He sought good in his nation. His rule was pleasing to them, and his honor was shown all of his days. To crown all of his honors, he took Joppa for harbor and opened the ways to the isles of the sea. He extended the borders of his nation and gained control of the country. He gathered a host of captives, and he ruled over Garza and Bethzur and the citadel. He removed its uncleanness from it, and there was none to oppose him. They tilled their land in peace, the ground gave its increase, and the trees and plants of their fruit. Old men sat in the streets and talked of good things, and youth put on splendid military attire. He supplied the towns with food, and he furnished them with the means of defense, until his renown spread to the ends of the earth. He established peace in the land, and Israel rejoiced with great joy. And all the people sat under the vines and fig trees, and there was none to make them afraid. No one was left in the land to fight them, and the kings were crushed in those days. He gave help to all the humble among with his people, and he sought out the law, and he did away with all the renegades and outlaws. He made the sanctuary glorious and added to the vessels of the sanctuary. It was heard in Rome and far away as Sparta that Jonathan had died, and they were deeply grieved. When they heard that his brother Simon had become high priest in his stead and was ruling over the country and the towns in it, they wrote him on bronze tablets to renew with him the friendship and allegiance that they had established with the brothers Judas and Jonathan. And these were read before the assembly in Jerusalem. This is a copy of the letter the Spartans sent. The rulers of the city of Spartans to the high priest Simon, and to the elders and the priests of the rest of the Jewish people, our brothers, greetings. The envoys who were there sent out our people and told us about your glory and honor, and we have rejoiced at their coming. We have recorded what they said in our public decrees as follows. Numranus, son of Antiochus, and Antipater, son of Jason, envoys of the Jews, have come to us to renew their friendship with us. It has pleased our people to receive these men with honor and put a copy of the words in the public archives, so that the people of the Spartans may have record of them. And they have sent copies of this to the high priest Simon. After Simon sent Numranus to Rome with a large gold shield weighing 1,000 minas to confirm all the alliance with the Romans. When the people heard these things, they said, how shall we thank Simon and his son? For he and his brothers and the house of his father have stood firm, and they have fought and repulsed Israel's enemies and established its freedom. So they made a record on bronze tablets and put it on the pillars in Mount Zion. This is a copy of what they wrote. On the 180th day of Elul, in the 172nd year, which is the third year of the great priest Simon, in Azrimel, the great assembly of the priests and people and rulers of the nation and the elders of the country, the following proclamation was proclaimed to us. Since wars often occurred in the country, Simon, the son of Matthias, a priest of the sons of Jored, and his brothers exposed themselves to danger and resisted the enemies of the nation, in order that their sanctuary and law may be preserved, and they brought great glory to the nation. Jonathan rallied the, the nation and became their high priest, and he was gathered to his people. When the enemies decided to invade their country and lay hands on the sanctuary, then Simon rose up and fought for his nation. He spent great sums of his money, and he armed the soldiers of his nation, paid them their wages. He fortified the towns of Judea and Bethzor on the borders of Judea, which were formerly the arms of the enemy had been stored. And he placed a garrison of the Jews. He also fortified Joppa, which is by the sea, and Garza, which is on the border of Azotus, where the enemy had formerly lived. He settled Jews there and provided in those towns whatever was necessary for restoration. The people saw Simon's faithfulness and the glory that he had resolved him to win for his nation, and they made him his leader and high priest. Because he had done these things, and because of the justice and loyalty he had maintained towards his nation, he had sought in every way to exalt his people. In his days, things prospered in his hands, so the Gentiles were put out of the country, as were those in the city of David and Jerusalem, who had built themselves a citadel, which they used to sally forth and defile the inversions of the sanctuary, doing great damage to its purity. He settled the Jews in it and fortified it for the safety of the country and for the safety of the country and for the city. He built the walls in Jerusalem higher. And the view of the king Demetrius confirmed him in high priesthood, made him one of his friends, and paid high honors. For he had heard the Jews were addressed by the Romans as friends, allies, and brothers, and the Romans had received envoys from Simon with honor, of Simon with honor. The Jews and their priests have resolved that Simon should be their leader and high priest forever, until a trustworthy prophet shall arise, and he should be governor over them, so that they take charge of the sanctuary and appoint officials over its tasks over the country, and the weapons and the strongholds, that they should take charge of the sanctuary, and that he should be obeyed by all, and that all contracts in the country shall be written in his name, and that he shall be clothed in purple and rare gold. None of the people or priests shall be permitted to nullify any of these decisions, or oppose what he says, or to converse in assembly in the country without his permission, or to be clothed in purple, or put on a gold buckle. Whoever acts in contrary to these decisions, or rejects any of them, shall be liable to punishment. All the people agreed to grant Simon the right to act in accordance to these decisions. So Simon accepted and agreed to be high priest, to be commander and ethnarch of the Jews and priests, and the protector of them all. And when they gave orders to inscribe the decree on bronze tablets, to put them up in conspicuous place in the precincts of the sanctuary, and to deposit copies of them in the treasury, so that Simon and his sons might have them. First Maccabees 13 and 14. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed that reading, that you learned some about how Maccabees is going. And catch us next time for chapter 15 and chapter 16. Peace be with you.